Hello, my name is Karl Mattson. I'm the CISO for Noname Security, and it's a real privilege to host this podcast session today with C Vision International. Importantly, we have our guest, Ramprakash Ramamoorthy from ManageEngine. Ramprakash, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome.
Hi, Carl. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me over.
So we're about to tackle a really timely topic, but it's also a really large topic in scope, which is AI in relation to IT operations management. ManageEngine, a lot of us know as a company who's been central to IT operations management for many years. But first give us a picture of ManageEngine, about your business, and then also what your role is with the company.
Sure, Carl. So, ManageEngine is the IT management division of Zoho Corporation. We prioritize flexible solutions that work for all businesses, regardless of size or budget. So, ManageEngine specializes on IT management software, and we have close to 120 plus award-winning products and free tools that cover most of your IT needs. And then we offer them in multiple deployment flavors, on-prem, on-cloud, self-hosted, public clouds, and so on. We have been in the business for more than 22 years now, and we are a very traditionally run company. We are bootstrapped. We haven't taken any external funding. We haven't acquired any companies. All of this technology has been built in-house. That makes us a very different software company if you think about it. So the goal in ManageEngine is always about thinking for the long term, always about building deep technical know-how. And that brings to my introduction. So I'm Ramprakash. I lead the AI research for Zoho Corp and ManageEngine right now. And I've been with the company for the last 12 plus years. Again, I'm a testament to the company's long-term thinking. In fact, I was the first AI engineer sometime in 2011 for the company. And today, we have a huge team of AI engineers right at the central team and then at the product teams as well. We do a lot of such research. Again, 2011 was a bit early for AI to mature, but then we keep investing in a lot of things like this. A lot of our technology, all of our technology is homegrown, and here we are. So I am here to share my experiences about building AI for all of the IT tools at ManageEngine. In fact, at ManageEngine, we don't see AI as a standalone technology. We strongly believe in X plus AI, where it's all about how do we add value to the tools that we are already building? How do we add value to monitoring tool? How do we add value to the security tool using AI? We don't see AI as a standalone entity. And that is what I'm here to talk about.
Amazing. I'll admit I'm guilty of being late to the discussion on AI until recently. Yeah, and it's a pleasure to have you join us today because you've been in this world now for a decade, and we all have a lot to learn here. So now that AI has really sort of reached its pinnacle of awareness, in terms of industry, security, IT, we're all thinking about AI. Give us a kind of like a current state. Where is AI transforming IT operations today? Like what capabilities and use cases can we capitalize on AI at the moment?
Perfect, Carl. If you look at AI's history, it is known to have this notion of over-promise and under-deliver. So
Mhm.
sometime, I mean, if you think about it, it people always had a fascination about predicting future, right? But then we royally fail at it. Even people, not AI. So if you think about it, if you were to ask people from centuries ago on what would be the modern day career look like, what would modern day jobs look like, and they could probably think of, they had a fanciness over moon. People would be talking about some life on moon or something like that, or life underwater. There were articles and literature that talks about underwater cities. And
Mhm.
then people are also very curious about animal intelligence, right? All of a sudden, I mean, we sent a dog to space. We were trying to see if horses were intelligent. We were trying to see if parrots were more intelligent. But then look at the job descriptions that we have today. Something like a data scientist, something like a network engineer would would probably very difficult. It would be very difficult to make a person from centuries old to understand what a network engineer does.
Mhm.
So the same way, if you look at the whole notion of human evolution, the way we think has been totally different, but then the way things happen have been totally different. Same thing happened to AI, right? From 1950s, 1960s, people had the fascination where they thought it is easier to describe what you want a computer to do. And that's how AI was born. But unfortunately, we didn't have enough compute. We didn't have enough data to process. And then we were taking a lot of directions. Even today, they say AI is modeled on the human brain. I mean, if you take any AI literature, any AI textbook, the first line would be a neural network is modeled on how a brain works. But technically, it really is not how our brain works. If you think about it, I mean, you are not a better cat identifier than me because you watched 1,000 cat pictures and I have just watched only 100, right? So the way the technology evolved, it has seen a lot of AI summers, AI winters, over promise, under deliver, over promise, under deliver. And then now, sometime around 2012-13, the shift happened where the whole notion of distributed computing came in. We had the likes of Hadoop, where instead of moving your data to the compute, you moved your compute to the data, and that helped you process huge amounts of volume. And then we also had cheaper data collection capabilities, not just the processing capabilities. Think about it. I mean, I have my last 6-7 years of heart rate, last 6-7 years of my step counter, all of it being stored digitally somewhere, and all of it using a very cheap sensor that can collect and store all the information. So the first step has been collecting a lot of all of these information. In business terms, it could be digitizing it. And then now you have digitized a ton of information, ton of data. You want to use all this information to your competitive advantage. So how do you do prediction on this data? How do you do analysis on this data? And parallelly, we also had the rise of business models in the consumer world, where you don't pay for your search engines, you don't pay for your social networks. Instead, you give back a lot of personal data, and then these guys are able to build a $1 trillion business model around it, very successful business models around it. So these three things put together, the availability of cheaper compute, the availability of cheaper data collection devices, and the business models that were built around data, has made AI what it is today. And then came 2022, where all of a sudden we started seeing AI in a lot of creative formats. The launch of DALL-E, the stable diffusion based image generation models, people were thinking, oh, it's only humans that could draw images, humans that could create beautiful images. But then DALL-E came and broke all the notions of it. And then we've been talking a lot about large language models, but then ChatGPT came in and then started things like summarizing, paraphrasing, building deep nested conversations, which we were thinking only humans could do, right? And so these things happened, but at the same time, a lot of this action was happening in the consumer space. Enterprise technology is always a late mover. In fact, I would say it has a late mover advantage. I mean, if you think about it, 7-8 years back, we didn't have a lot of mobile apps to get enterprise work done. Today, we have a lot of mobile-first enterprise apps that we are using on a day-to-day basis. The same thing about AI. The first notion of AI was talking into your TV remote to change your channel, calling a smart speaker, I mean, which is technically a smart microphone that just sits in your bedroom and eavesdrop. We saw a lot of these things in consumer world, and now slowly a lot of these is seeping into the enterprise world. So enterprise is playing its typical late mover advantage move. And we are seeing a lot of AI tools seeping into the enterprise technology. Talking specifically about IT management is one of the well digitized. In fact, it's 100% digital, right? We don't get syslogs printed on a paper and then make a report on top of it. It's 100% digital. So the landscape today is, the more digitized the domain is, the more AI can be applied on it. So that makes IT management systems very ripe for AI intelligence to be added. So where do we start? I mean, typically, the first place where you will have maximum impact is your security area. So the places in security where traditionally, where we see is things like zero-day attacks, things like alert fatigue of the operator that is working on a security system that is working on a SIM solution, things where the same aspect as zero-day, where you don't change the default configurations, you just leave it to the natural. Let's say you've configured an alert that does 10 fail logins per minute, and an attacker can fly under the radar by doing 9 fail logins per minute. Absolutely no alert is thrown ever. So the need for more elastic thresholds have come in. But one slight difference when applying AI to security is the fact that in the AI world, it's always about using your past data to create newer models. But in the notion of security, newer attacks come in every day. So there's a slight twist to the story where you train an AI model to understand what is normal, and then you raise a flag whenever things deviate out of it. So starting with security and then you come back to monitoring, there are so many variables. You look at any NOC team's dashboards and they're just brightly lit with so many parameters. And how does a human make sense of all of this? I mean, you have local experts who know very well about the dashboard that they are looking at, but how do you do all of this collectively? And things like, IT has become so crucial, especially after the pandemic. I mean, uh, I would not want to transact twice with the business on a website, on an app with that keeps crashing or that keeps
Right.
loading like really slow. It's not anymore about how clean your storefront is, how hospitable your staff are. It's about, do you have a chick website, or do you have a website or a payment gateway that is not that has proper security protocols, right? I don't want to be transacting twice on a website that is a point of a breach. So it's become so important. IT has moved from the back office to the front office. So the combination of security and monitoring, how do you ensure your end user experience is good? So how do you ensure that a person who is visiting your website from, let's say, from the East Coast in the US and from the West Coast in the US are having similar response times? So the whole notion of monitoring has a lot of IT today, a lot of AI today, where you're trying to see if we are going towards an anomaly, if we are going towards an outage has occurred. What could be the potential root cause? That's because all of a sudden you had a surge in traffic because it was a DDoS attack, or because you did a recent build update, and that is causing a lot of these troubles. So one is from instance T, you look at T plus 2, T plus 3. And when T plus 3 becomes T, you look back and say what kind of caused this event. So this is how AI is being used in monitoring. And finally, to top all of this, there is service delivery, where all of these monitoring and service delivery, I mean, monitoring and security incidents get raised as tickets, right? And again, this is a very human intensive process today. As soon as a ticket lands, you will have a human read it and assign it to a person who has to solve that ticket, and this is very inefficient. Now, if you have AI systems understand what an incoming ticket is talking about, and then look at the duty roster of people currently available, and depending on the priority, assigning it to the right person so that they would be able to act on it immediately and also help that person. I mean, you're not making that person redundant, but you are helping him, saying, hey, last time a similar incident happened, this was the closure that we made, or here is this help doc from your knowledge base. So this is the recommended step. Maybe you want to look at this. So there is a human in the loop. At the same time, there is also a system that can navigate through reams of data and then find the needle in the haystack and also present it as a suggestion. So this is the IT landscape today, monitoring, security, and service delivery. And you have AI touching each and every point of this, where we are reducing the unnecessary dependence on humans, and things like fatigue, things like flying under the radar can really be solved by using dynamic thresholds that are AI powered. So all said, just summarizing, there's a lot going on with AI in IT management because, like I said, we have tons of data. There is a lot of pattern mining that can be done and a lot of things that can be automated. And again, it's not going to make IT engineers or people working on it redundant. It's going to enhance their productivity.
Wow, Ram, there's so much to unpack in that story you shared. There's two things that jump out to me. The first is as you talked about the kind of the last few years and how we get to where we are in the history of AI. You placed a lot of emphasis on like basic compute cost and efficiency as a way to sort of unlock AI capabilities, and that's something that I'm going to ask you to help us see that as we talk about this through today, because one of the things that some of the things you talked about is the way that AI can assist. Perhaps a lot of the intelligence or the models may be there, but whether we can unlock it with computing capacity in a cost efficient manner, that might be a limitation that we have to figure out how to overcome. And that kind of brings me to the comparison to enterprise mobile, which I love because you're 100% right that the enterprise is a slow adopter in mobile technologies. Yes, we do have mobile applications that we use for corporate functions, but it's a very small subset compared to what you use in your personal life in terms of being mobile enabled. The mobile enabled enterprise is still pretty early, I'd say, in its sort of sophistication. And anyways, fascinating story. So let's save a couple of those topics as we go through here. And if you could say from an outcomes perspective, if you look at where we can apply AI in operations today, what are the places where we are measurably achieving outcomes today with improved service levels or resource efficiency? Where is the proof tell us that this is working well?
Perfect. So I think, today the numbers in
Mhm.
IT are 24/7, 99.99% uptime, reduce the mean time taken to resolve. So if you see, anybody who has run a service desk will tell you how these delays cascade across the system. They perpetuate across the system, right? So the person who is actually looking at the tickets is on a break or uh, didn't understand the immediate emergency need of that particular ticket, and then there's a delay in assigning, and then he assigns it to the wrong person. Not blaming the people there, but then it happens when you follow a normal business process. So process optimization is something that AI can do very well. And it also brings in a notion of elasticity. If you think about it, now let's say I'm predicting outages, I'm predicting incidents. I can also give a confidence interval saying I'm 80% sure that there is going to be an anomaly in this particular web server. I am 60% sure. So how do you build workflows around this? When you're 80% sure, you probably have to inform your customer facing team to alert them that there might be a service disruption. If it is 60% sure, you don't have to do that. So you'll have to build different workflows for different kind of probabilities that come into the system. And
Mhm.
ultimately, the goal is to reduce the mean time taken to resolve, to reduce the impact of security incidents, to ensure consistent uptime across geographies. So all of these put together, making your IT more resilient, making your IT more meaningful, both for your employees and for your customers, is what AI can unlock for you.
So as you talked about like designing those workflows, I imagine that there aren't a lot of companies where the current like operations staff is well equipped and capable of like let's say designing those new workflows because this is territory that we haven't entered yet. So do you think is it a is there a barrier to adoption of new capabilities because our teams yet haven't wrapped their head around the universe of what's possible, and how do we get people to the place where they can start to take advantage of some of these technologies?
Great question, Carl. Actually, I remember a funny incident. Sometime in 2015, when we launched our first AI feature, it was in our monitoring tool site 24/7. And we were consistently refreshing our mailboxes just to see if we have got. It's a young team. It's a four engineer team, and then naturally it went out, and we were looking at our usage graphs. They were reasonable, but then we were also consistently refreshing our support mailboxes just to see if there is some feedback. And 3 days went, 4 days went, and a couple of weeks later, the first email comes in saying, "Hey, there is this new feature that detects anomaly on monitors. How do I turn this off?" Right? And the
Ah,
team was so disappointed. That was like 3 years of research. We
yep.
had a lot of challenges before getting it into production because ManageEngine is not a startup. It's definitely not an AI startup. It when we started, we had products that were at least a decade old, and the whole notion of AI means using a lot of data to create models. So we had to orchestrate those models. We had to bring in a level of uniformity across our products. So in fact, when we started, we had close to 100 different date formats, just date formats. And how do we bring it on to a single place to do analytics on top of them? So we had so many challenges. We built it and shipped it. The first question that came was, hey, how do I turn this off? And that gave us a realization that you are building products for experts who created the IT infrastructure from scratch. And all of a sudden, you're putting a model that has been trained on the last 4 weeks data. And I'm sure any sane person is going to be asking it to turn it off. So
Mhm.
we did an interesting tweak to ensure people to use the AI features, because I mean these things are expensive. I mean they cost a
Yep.
ton of compute. The engineers are expensive. So basically, what we did was we added explanations wherever possible, right? Because in a very regulated environment like IT, I cannot just go and add more servers because the AI engine felt your performance would be better if you add more servers. I am
Yep.
answerable to my boss. I will also have to understand why. And the AI model, a good AI model is only 80% accurate. So how
Mhm.
do I trust it? So we started adding explanations wherever possible. If you look at the AI landscape, it's very correlation first. In fact, the whole notion of mathematics itself is very correlation first. You can say force is equal to mass multiplied by acceleration. You can say mass is equal to force divided by acceleration, and everything is still legal, right? But you don't have the equal to sign does not have a notion of who is causing what. And that is very important in a setup, in a very interconnected, interleaved setup like IT.
Mhm.
So adding explanations was an afterthought when we started. If you look at most AI systems today, let's take your fancy LLM that's outside right now. The LLM will not have any guardrails to stop it from hallucinating. But then there will be a surrogate model that will detect if the LLM is hallucinating or not. The same thing was to traditional ML systems when we started. So you are flagging an anomaly. You will have to explain why do you think it will be an anomaly and what would be the expected value. And then we had issues where some value would be some 0.001 and all of a sudden it will become zero point 0.1. That's insignificant. But then for the system, it's 100% increase. So we had to weed out certain things and then slowly we started adoption. And then we also changed our messaging in a way that we were not screaming on the top of voice that this is intelligent. But then we gave a lot of contextual recommendations, a lot of contextual suggestions where people started using it. And then
Mhm.
came the pandemic where the whole notion of IT changed overnight. All of a sudden, 99% of your users were working from office and
Mhm.
99% started working remotely. And you had your enterprise sensitive information being only accessible from the from your office, on your office device, on your office network. But overnight, that whole notion changed. And we saw a lot of IT systems struggle. And this is where people started using AI's recommendation, especially in terms of security and monitoring. We saw an uptick in the usage once the pandemic set. And we found a third wave. I mean, talking about pandemics, how can I not mention the word wave? As
Yep.
soon as the LLMs were launched, there is a lot of hype now. I mean, all over the media, can AI take over jobs? Will AI destroy humans and whatnot? The third phase is where we are seeing a recent uptick because a lot of people are talking about AI outside. So the AI features that we have already released are now being discovered by customers. So what was more of a purchase checklist has now
Mhm.
become an a really useful item that customers use on a day-to-day basis. Our usage graphs are a testament to it. And our initial AI engines were heavily reliant on how you would configure your network, right? How have you set in all parameters? Are all of the fields filled when you create a new kind of, let's say, when there's a new joinee, you're giving him a laptop, you're giving him a mobile phone from your corporate policy, and are all the information filled? And if you think about it, most cases they are not filled, right? It's a
Oh.
lot of it is just junk. So our AI engines have been tuned to ensure they do a lot of auto discovery. They look at user and entity behavior analysis and understand that this is a phone, this is a printer, right? I mean, these things are configured, but still the variant of that printer. Typically, a printer in this office floor prints 100 pages a day. And all
Mhm.
of a sudden, it has printed some 300 pages. So it's clearly an anomaly. Typically, this person logs in at Monday 9 a.m. All of a sudden, he is doing a login at Saturday morning 3 a.m. I mean, it could be because his shift changed. But still, as an AI that is continuously monitoring what is normal, we'll have to flag if something is abnormal. And it also has to explain why. Hey, I expect this person to log in at 9 a.m. All of a sudden, he's doing it at 3 a.m. So, explanations plus something that causates, especially in terms of network performance monitoring. Oh, the database server is slow because the number of requests coming to your to your website is really high. because you ran a marketing promotion and that exploded, which is a good thing for the marketing team, but not for the IT team because you were not informed. So adding explanations can really help win the trust of the users.
Mhm.
And also from an entry barrier perspective, if you look at AI, especially we have our endpoint security agents. We have a product called Endpoint Central that helps you manage endpoints. And the challenge is you already have an agent that is running in an endpoint. This endpoint could be a very thin client. It could be a laptop with just 2 to 4 gigs of RAM. And then we started deploying AI models into these. And now here, the memory and the compute footprint have to be really limited, because I mean, you cannot take a lot of RAM just to ensure if there is some malware or ransomware is coming in. So, and AI is known to be a compute intensive process, and it's always very cloud friendly. So we had to take a lot of counterintuitive approaches to ensure the model's compute and data requirement footprint is really low, so that we can operate in areas with limited compute availability, with limited memory availability. So to summarize, one is the psychological barrier, where AI can recommend nonsense. You kind of solve that by adding confidence intervals to your models or by adding explanations to the results. Two is having causal models instead of correlation based models, having causal models. And three is ensuring your AI model is universal. It works even in the smallest endpoints that your customers have, and AI not being just restricted to the cloud. I think these three things can ensure there is a faster adoption of AI, especially in IT.
And for that network or operational engineer that you're engaging with,
Mm.
is it important for them to upskill also to get to that point? Like, for example, with basic prompt engineering skills, what does that end user what kind of upskilling really makes a difference on the user side?
Great question, Carl. I think, I mean, a lot of times when people ask, is AI going to take over jobs? I always say AI is not going to take over jobs. Somebody with access to AI is probably going to replace you on your job. So it's important to upskill and understand how this technology can really help, what it can do and what it cannot do. Having that understanding is really more crucial to ensure you use the technology to your benefits, right? So, I mean, you need not understand logistic regression to get used to AI, but you need to experience a lot more of these AI tools to get a hang of how these things work. For example, there is a huge dump of logs. Can you use an LLM to get a summary out of it? Right. So you have like 1,000+ log messages and ask a large language model to give me a gist of what is happening in this file. And it says, oh, here is a person who has come in, he is logged into this landing machine. He did a failed password attempt, and then he went in, he successfully cleared the authentication. Then there was a second factor authentication that came in, he cleared it using this fashion, and then he went and touched this file. Actually, he didn't have write permission, but he tried to modify something. Then he opened a terminal and then he did a chmod and changed the permission. So I mean, from a huge text dump to a visual story, and this is just prompt engineering. You just need to go ask the right questions, and you need to know which questions to ask. So having that is very important, especially I mean, I see AI as something as disruptive as your internet or your operating system or your mobile phones. So it's important to stay in the groove and having an exposure to all of these technologies.
So I'll put my CIO hat on for a second, and so now I'm taking advantage of ManageEngine's AI sophistication, and I have engineers in my team are now putting that to good use. How do I make sure that I don't unintentionally create, for example, like extraordinary compute costs? Because all of a sudden, because I'm taking advantage of this, are there unintended consequences? And I think about that cost perspective right now in particular is if my engineers get too aggressive with the use, will I have an AWS bill tomorrow that is tenfold larger? What's your answer to the CIO who has that concern or question?
Yeah, that is always there. I mean, we can look at it from two different perspectives. One is from a non-LLM perspectives. I mean,
Mhm.
we still haven't have a lot of LLMs in the enterprise space, but
Okay.
we see them coming. I mean, you should have heard about the demand for GPUs right now.
Mhm.
It's just crazy. I mean, you can have
Yep.
all the money on earth, but you still cannot buy a GPU today. You need to wait for at least a minimum of 6 months as the time we speak right now. It's at least a minimum 6 months wait time and close to a year wait time for the premium model. So everybody is trying to train large language models. So I look at this from two different perspectives. One is in a non-LLM world, these models aren't very expensive, right? These ML models that are trained for one particular use case, that are trained for finding out anomaly in network traffic, versus there will be a model that is trained for finding an anomaly in your login pattern. These models can do only one thing really well. So these are narrow models, where you let it observe for your natural patterns for a while, for your normal patterns for a while, and then you spot anomalies. And in these cases, I don't see there will be a cost escalation, because again, a lot of this is, like I said, it's all about X plus AI. It is deeply integrated into your existing product features. So you wouldn't even know it's an AI or it is something based on your search and your traditional intelligence, where you run scheduler jobs and then you do some correlation and infer something. So the second part is where things can go crazy, especially with LLMs. Now, all of a sudden, your people are trying to get a summary of the same log file. There are 10 security engineers, and each of them is clicking on the summarize button, and then the GPU tax is crazy. So where do we see this going? I think today it's a huge challenge. I mean, we have also read about companies that leaked a lot of their source code into some LLM, leaked sensitive information, sensitive customer information into LLMs. And, as long as you're using a reputable LLM, it's fine. But today you have a ton of open source LLMs. You don't even know who's hosting it, but then there's a free endpoint, and it's like restricting. I mean, we saw this in case of translation and grammar. In fact, it was one of the very early AI projects that we did in ManageEngine, where all of our editors have a grammar error corrector and detector. I mean, detector and corrector. And then they also have inbuilt translation capabilities. Because a lot of times what happens is they have sensitive information in a service desk. They copy paste that information into a tool that was built for the consumer to translate. And you don't know what their privacy policy is. You don't know, will they be using your data to train it or not? And that could be a sensitive information leakage. And now let's say that guy gets into a breach. All your customers' information gets lost in the breach. And you cannot restrict your folks from using a third-party translation tool. So the goal is to bring it inside the product. So today, all of ManageEngine editors have inbuilt grammar error corrector detector, inbuilt translator. So your data never leaves the ecosystem. Can you price this? No. But it's more of a terrific value add from a privacy perspective.
Sure.
I see the same thing coming to LLMs as well. Again, the LLMs that are going to be used in the enterprise, in the IT world, aren't going to be very high-level general purpose LLMs. They're going to be specific purpose models. But what these LLMs have taught us is, if you are overfitting the model, if you are adding more parameters and adding more data to your model is able to do emergent behavior that it has not seen in the past. That's what they call zero shot learning, where you don't give a specific example, but the model is able to create some patterns and is able to answer those questions. So I am betting that there will be a lot of specific purpose LLMs, and that is why the whole GPU madness is right now. It's very difficult even to rent a GPU. Prices are through the roof. So where I see this going, as long as, in fact, in ManageEngine, our short-term goal is we have integrated with OpenAI. And how this works is, users will have to go get an OpenAI account, have a paid account, and get an API key, and then put that into ManageEngine. That way, the privacy is also very clear. Your context remains within your corporate OpenAI account. So I think a lot of people are doing this in the short term. A lot of companies are integrating, a lot of IT service providers are integrating with the publicly available LLMs, which have a reasonable privacy policy. Of course, OpenAI promises that it will not be using your data if you are actually paying customer. It will not use it to train the model or make the model better. So there are multiple levels of privacy that you will have to take care of. It could be user level, it could be org level, or it could be a global level privacy that you will have to take care of. And then the next step will be trying and building their own specific purpose LLMs so that the cost does not escalate. So today, a CISO has to be worried, especially for LLM use cases, on two factors. The first one is privacy. Is anybody leaking sensitive information to these LLMs? And you cannot stop them from using it as well, because it's a thin line between enabling innovation versus putting draconian laws so that you cannot do anything. So and I would obviously want all these ASOs to slide to enable innovation, but maybe have a PII checker that vets all the information that is going out of your system. And if something is there, raise a flag. And but the thing is, it should not become like a GDPR cookie consent where, you have the muscle memory to click I agree on putting all cookies. So and then the cost factor. So how do you restrict it? Should I ask my manager? Should my manager click a button to ensure I get a summary of it? But over the medium to long term, I'm sure specific purpose LLMs will be built into these IT management systems. That way, the cost is under control.
With that idea of like manager approval too. By the way, I almost have the assumption that the further you go up the chain of approvals, probably the less proficient in the AI discipline that person often is going to be in the organizations, because we're all learning this as we go. So one word I'd like to ask you, if you could double click on, is the word reputable. And so really a two-part question I'd like to ask. What do your customers ask of you to demonstrate that you are reputable? How do you illustrate quality of your models and the integrity of them? And then second, just sort of as a generic sense, what advice would you provide for the kind of your average enterprise in terms of what are the things that they should be looking for when they're looking at ManageEngine and they're looking at other companies? How should they define reputable as a partner in AI?
Perfect. So the first thing that we see is ManageEngine is a very privacy-first company. In fact, we have a strong no ads policy even in our free products. This has been ever since the beginning, not just in the recent days. And we, like I said, we believe in building the long-term technical know-how. So we don't even host our systems on public clouds. So we maintain our own cloud infrastructure. We have our own data centers, co-located data centers, and we have a very strong privacy policy. And then our promise is that we don't use any of these customer data to train our models. Okay. So we have like 3 levels of privacy if you think about it. Now, let's say you have a individual user level privacy. Now, let's say we have an AI system to find out vacant slots in our calendar for both of us. And my calendar is my sensitive information. Your calendar is your private information. But we just have to find an intersection, right? So we don't want to exploit 2 users from the same org. We don't want to leak their data outside. Leak their data to the other person. 1, user level privacy. 2, there is an org level privacy. Now, let's say you have found a very strategic way to lower your AWS costs, to lower your cloud compute costs. And I cannot recommend that strategy to your competitor because that is your knowledge.
Yep.
Right. So I cannot train a model on your data and then expose it to another customer who is onboarding my product. So 1, user level, 2, org level, and 3, there are global models. What is translation for you is translation for me. What is grammar, wrong grammar to right grammar for you is the same wrong grammar to right grammar for me. Of course, you'll have to weed out all the personally identifiable information out of it, both direct and indirect. But still, these can be global models. So we have models operating on these 3 scopes. And at any point in time, your data will only be used to predict your forecast yours, find anomaly on yours, find the root cause of yours. So that is the promise that we have offered to our customers. And like I said, adding explanations and adding confidence intervals to the output that we give really helped win trust. So, and if you're looking for a generic, if you're looking for a vendor, I would say it's important to see if they can play the long game, because all of a sudden there is a lot of hype on LLMs, and then you find LLM companies. All of a sudden there is a hype on Web 3.0, and then you find a lot of blockchain companies. Especially in something like IT, it's important to have a reputation of playing the long game, right? Because IT trends keep changing. Like I said, COVID happened and all of a sudden trends changed. And then there was a whole new notion of blockchain and everybody thought that was going to be the future, but then that faded off. And then now there are LLMs. So find a player that can anchor themselves on their core competencies, which is like if you're building an SIM solution, that is your core competency. Don't look at somebody who's chasing buzzwords, but at the same time, they will have to embrace these newer technology as well. I mean, you just
Yep.
cannot stay idle without actually investing on AI right now. So that, and look at the privacy policy. I mean, it's important to have an understand. It's important to understand how the privacy policy of any given tool that you use works, because more and more businesses are getting digital. More and more of their competitive and sensitive secrets are being shared with vendors. And how do they do it? If you think about it, a lot of these cloud compute providers are the ones who have a very ad based business model, right? That is
Sure.
typically based on your sensitive. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence. And these are the companies that are able to build LLMs real quick.
Yep.
And just think about it. So your
Yep.
privacy is very important, especially more than the individual privacy. The privacy for the business unit as a whole is becoming more and more crucial, because that can that can really kill you over the years. And a lot of times people think, oh, it's just IT, what are they going to do with this? But even things like your model's accuracy levels, your model's bias. I mean, how did I not talk about this? It's
Right.
an AI podcast, and definitely there's going to be something about bias. If you think
Yep.
about it, I'm prioritizing a service delivery ticket. Should that model be vetted for bias? Yes, it should be. Any AI feature that goes out should be. I mean, nobody wants to put bias incidentally, but then the things can change. Your lot of your AI models is dependent on the data shape that is coming in, and this data shape can keep changing. They have a beautiful term called concept drift, where you train the model on something, and then the real life has slowly changed. And today, the
Mhm.
real life is drastically different, right? So it's called
Mhm.
concept drift, where the concept has drifted from when you trained the model. Let's say I trained a model in 2019. Now that
Mhm.
model is irrelevant today. Even you trained a model on 2021, where everybody was completely working from home, to a hybrid mode today. The concept has drifted. So
Mhm.
if your model isn't learning new stuff, it's going to throw random anomalies. It's going to give you a lot of false positives, and the administrator is going to shut it down because it's always saying irrelevant stuff. So consistently updating your models, ensuring a strong privacy and a bias-free AI policy is very important to vet an AI vendor when you try and partner with them.
Yeah, I really like that way you broke down the individual, the org, and like the sort of the global, because it's sort of obvious, but I could foresee providers being able to meet expectations in one category, but then completely fail in another. Because of the way that they establish, for example, or org or tenant relationships amongst customers, like so they could be doing the responsible thing at a transactional level, but be doing the wrong thing at the tenant level. So I really like the way that you broke that down. That's fantastic. I'm probably going to adopt that, and or at least think about how we're doing our due diligence. Um, so let's as you shared at the beginning, living in underwater cities or living on Mars. The predictions about the future are destined to be wrong. But give us what you think in the 5 to 10 years horizon. As an IT discipline and IT operations, where do you see the use of AI bringing us to? What's the destination look like for us down the road?
Hmm. Well, I think AI is going to be an important aspect of our digital lives, both
Mhm.
from the consumer perspective as well as from the enterprise perspective. AI is going to touch a lot of software, and but again, it'll not be standalone. It'll be X plus AI. You have a social media app, and then AI will be helping you recommend content on it. You have a service delivery engine, and then the service delivery is going to be the key, but then AI is going to automate a lot of redundant stuff and help you uh, take things out of it. And the way AI itself is built, and I think a lot of changes will come over the next 5 to 10 years, because uh, if you think about it, uh, sometimes I feel that LLMs are the best shot to AGI as on date. This is the closest we have gotten to AGI. And sometimes when I'm in a different mood, I think about it. do you think predicting the next word is going to get us to AGI? I don't think so. So it's like I'm bipolar. One day I think LLMs are the best shot to AGI, and the next day I think no, predicting the next word, that is not going to be intelligence. And I love the way Stephen Wolfram, I mean, you should read his content on LLMs and how it's going to shape the future of AI. He says, we humans think we can only do certain, or it's only humans that can do certain things. And he calls it X. And he says every passing year, the value of X has been getting reduced. So 1 year back, we didn't know that AI could create art much better than humans by just giving random prompts. 1 year or 6 months back, we didn't know that AI can beautifully summarize, beautifully paraphrase, and see where it can take us. But one apprehension that I have about the whole thing is, I mean, you're talking to somebody who has like literally learned the entire internet. And a lot of these might not be applicable to, in fact, there is this, when ChatGPT was prominent, I read about this on the internet where there was a robotics professor, and then in robotics, they say they have achieved general purpose robotics. They have achieved the nirvana of robotics when they are able to do a multi-purpose grabber, right? I mean, the same grabbing engine that can grab a silk saree, the same grabbing engine that can grab a banana, an iPhone box, and so on. I mean, they relate that to AI in AGI. When you have an AGI that can answer any questions, then that is your, general purpose grasper in terms of robotics. So we played around with ChatGPT, just trying to see if it is able to answer these questions. And typically there are examples on the internet where a brother and sister, elder sister and a younger brother were trying to figure out their Easter egg. And all of a sudden, the younger brother identifies that it's over a place where he cannot reach. So he uses a shovel to pull the Easter egg down. The elder sister incidentally picks it up. That's a whole different story. But if you think about it, the younger brother has never seen a shovel being used to pick something from a place that he was not able to reach.
Sure.
Right now, that is how a 3-year-old thinks. Yep. Today, have robots reached that level? Absolutely no, because they have never seen a shovel being used to pull things from somewhere. Yep. The same way, we prompted ChatGPT with similar questions. I think it was GPT-3, 3.5 when we started off, and the question was, "Hey ChatGPT, I have a hockey ball that has rolled under my couch. I have the following items with me. What all will I use to roll the ball out from under the couch?" So I have a hockey stick, a bottle of peanut butter, a piece of string, and then a light bulb. So what all will I use? And the answer was, you take the hockey stick, apply peanut butter to the end of it, attach a string, use it like a fishing rod, pull the ball out. If it is dark, illuminate the place using the light bulb. And obviously I was clear. I am the one who was at mistake here. Maybe I didn't engineer the prompt right. So I say, okay, you don't have to give everything I use. Just use the only ones that are necessary.
Sure.
And then ChatGPT said, okay, maybe it's bright outside, so you don't need the light bulb, but take the hockey stick, apply peanut butter, attach string to it, use it like a fishing rod, roll the ball out. So this is where we are with respect to AGI, because it's more of a next word prediction engine based. I'm sure probably this was not in the training data. So your LLM will be used as a writing assistant, will be used for you to understand complex information. Like today, reading papers are much simpler because, so a lot of time what happens is a lot of these abstracts that you have for paper has become more like a marketing thing. So there are places where you go read the abstract and pay money and download that paper. So that's become more like why you should pay money to get this paper versus what has really happened within the paper. And it takes a long time to read academic literature for somebody from the industry, for somebody who's not used to reading it on a day-to-day basis. But now with these large language models, it has become much easier to make sense of a paper. The time to make sense of a paper for me at work has gone down from anywhere from 6-7 working days to 3 hours now. I'm able to decide if that paper will help my use case or not. So again, yes, it is useful. Yes, it is a breakthrough. I'm not completely writing it off. So one thing that I see is, if you see, the whole notion of LLMs have been built in the whole notion of transformers came out in 2017. And there is not much of an algorithmic changes that has been done since 2023. It's all about adding a lot of compute, adding a lot of data. And we have reports that say we have run out of all data, and most of the content that is created comes out of LLMs today. So it won't be wise to train the model on this data that it created itself. So a lot of questions on that aspect. So where I foresee LLMs go is there is going to be a strong algorithmic change that is going to come through, where you're going to do more with less, right? The emphasis will shift back to algorithms. I mean, neural networks have been ever since 1950s, 1960s. Logistic regression has been around since 1960s. So there's going to be a lot of improvisation on the algorithm aspect. That is what I predict. I still don't know. I mean, I could be the person who predicted underwater cities. But I think this will be a more sustainable approach, because today the entry barrier to creating LLMs are huge. And even using LLMs, they are going to be expensive. Now, how does this impact IT? IT, like I said, is 100% digitized. So it's ripe for AI innovation. We will see a lot of specific purpose LLMs coming in. An LLM that can, it might not be as big as a 175 billion parameter model, but something in the likes of 3 billion to 4 billion parameter model that can look at your infrastructure, that can give you contextual recommendations to reduce your compute cost, that can foresee security threats, that can find vulnerabilities and patch them as and when it finds out, that can make your IT engine even more efficient, right? Even more contextual, giving people insights and recommending things that people are not able to see. And for this to happen, it will not need data in silos. It will need to have a very holistic picture of your monitoring system, of your security system, of your service delivery, of your endpoints, right? So you have your cloud infrastructure, then you have your endpoint infrastructure, and then you have security, monitoring, and service delivery, and then you have multiple access connecting all of these. So I foresee a lot of narrow, specific purpose models, more powerful models with more emphasis on the algorithm than on the data itself, taking over in the world of IT.
Yep, fascinating. So you made the comment that the on the chat GPT is like engaging with a 3-year-old in terms of there's some obvious things that they aren't able to put together, but a 3-year-old with unlimited access to the internet and information. So the question about risk is going to come up about the future too. So let's just take this analogy forward to like if the chat GPT style models are 3 years old today, what happens when and they begin to rebel in terms of security level? So give us like a prediction on where could our use or where could the development of AI be counterproductive, and how do we think about the downsides, and how do we think about how to prepare ourselves for potential unintended negative consequences of AI adoption?
Well, I think I mean, we've all had this pet peeve where as soon as uh, we had telephone directories, I mean, we had the contacts app on our phone. We were remembering a lot of phone numbers by heart, and now, to be honest, I don't even know my wife's phone number because, I mean, I hope she doesn't listen to this. But then,
Yep.
none of us are remembering phone numbers these days, right? And it'll become interesting because sometimes the question could be, how do we think? I mean, you get every answer out of LLMs, and maybe someday some kid is going to go and ask, hey, how do I think on my own? So I don't know, because this will create a lot of social repercussions as well, because the access to this technology can be a game changer. So there is obviously going to be a divide between people who use this technology to their benefit and people who don't have access to this technology, not because of their own fault, but because of let's say no available internet, or internet is expensive, not able to afford devices, not able to afford these. I'm sure it is taking crazy amount of money to run these LLM models right now. I'm sure the prices are going to just keep going up. Maybe today we are all looking at introductory prices, which are voluntarily kept low so that we can all take the bait. It'll be interesting to see the social repercussions. And then there is also a general notion of fear that AI is going to take over a lot of jobs. AI is going to come replace things. I mean, I think I don't think that's going to happen, because I mean, when computers and calculators came in, people in the fintech world were actually thinking it's going to take over their jobs, number crunchers. But look
Mhm.
at the kind of revolution that it has created. Same thing with telecom. When we switched from manual telecom switching to automated telecom switching, look at the kind of jobs internet has created around it. So I'm sure it's not going to replace us. It's not going to take over. But then the places where it can go wrong, especially from a privacy angle, right? The people who are building these LLMs might or might not really know how this is going to be used. So think about it. Yeah, there is a terminal cancer patient, and you're using all the sensitive information to give him treatment. That is fine. But all of a sudden, your food delivery app is sharing the data with your insurance guy, and they're going to find out that you're having a milkshake every night at 11 p.m. and they're going to jack up your insurance prices. Now, the laws haven't caught up, right? Privacy laws haven't caught up. There are a lot of privacy bills across the globe. I mean, California has a privacy act. Europe is coming up with, I mean, GDPR does not even mention the word AI, but then now they are coming up with newer regulation that's going to talk about risk-based AI model.
Mhm.
And things like credit assessment, things like recruitment. We've all heard stories about how a particular company shut down a recruitment agent because it was looking at other parameters and it was being biased. So
Mhm.
how do you ensure that there is proper deployment of this technology, especially when taking mission critical decisions like treatment of a patient or an admission in a university or appointment of a job or a credit processing system? Will there be some regulation? Can I go compete with it? And then use of my personal data, especially in developing economy, the whole notion of privacy is still very new to them. I
Mhm.
mean, this app wants to use your data. Yes, go ahead and use it. That's the notion of privacy in most parts of the world. How do we, as individuals, as businesses, ensure our sensitive information is just used for our betterment and is not being used to attack on us? So maybe more regulations, more a very balanced and a very sustainable development of these larger language models is what I see in the future. These are two things that keep me up in the night.
Mhm.
How is it going to change? I mean, will I have a legal recourse if some AI is deciding that uh, I'm not doing something right or I'm doing something wrong and so on?
Well, you talked about the use of like sort of special purpose or even smaller LLMs with a single purpose, and perhaps that's a huge mitigant. Then, if the future state is more smaller models, then that bigger set of privacy problems might be solved almost technically. Like for example, if I am running models here on my local laptop that the data stays here locally, I may be less susceptible to some of the risk exposure of using some of the larger public models. So fascinating. Do you have for the for the engineer who might be entering this field, do you have any advice for how do I learn about what I don't know today? So if I'm an engineer in a typical enterprise, how do I begin to get smart in the field and about what I can do to begin to develop skills or augment myself, upskill? Where should I start to learn? What's a recommendation?
Right. So I think the best part is access to the internet.
Hmm.
Whichever part of the world you are. Unlike now, let's say we are all into robotics or we are all into manufacturing. I mean,
Yep.
you would not have the machine or you would not have the raw materials to actually do things. But then with internet, it's very easy. There are a ton of courses that can help you do things. Now, let's
Hmm.
say you want to become an AI developer. There are so many. I mean, you just Google and all of it is free. You have courses from Stanford. You have courses from MIT. You have courses from the top universities of the world for free,
Okay.
and the professors who are teaching there, it's really the MOOCs, the massive online courses have really
Hmm.
opened up the knowledge economy. So wherever you are, rural India or you're in Silicon Valley, you have access to the best minds of the world. And if especially for somebody who's getting into AI, not it's not just about doing these. I mean, I'm sure a lot of engineers, I mean, if this were a real audience, if I'm going to ask how many of you have ever signed up for an AI course, I'm sure everybody would do. How many of you have
Yep.
completed it? It's just going to be 2 or 3%. So it's going to be important to uh, do the course, take it to the, I mean, don't just start,
Hmm.
especially with MOOCs. you will need a lot of personal motivation. I mean, it's like working out in your home versus working out in the gym. Same way, MOOC versus going to college, where there are a lot of environmental variables that can help you do better. Start doing the assignments as well in the course. This is for somebody who wants to start becoming an AI developer or an AI engineer. And a lot of times, even if you're an engineer, just try and see where you can apply AI to whatever you are doing today. I'm sure it'll impress your boss, because I'm sure everybody is thinking, am I going to be displaced by AI, or is my competitor investing a lot in AI? There's a lot of fear of missing out in
Yep.
the technology, whatever stack you are. I mean, you are an engineer, you're an IT admin, you are a database admin. There's a lot of, you're a writer. There's a lot of fear on, is AI going to displace me, or is my competitor using excessive AI so that they can put us out of the job? So I think a lot of that fear is misplaced. Like any new technology, there's a lot of hype around this, but cut the hype, take a very level-headed approach, see where you can apply AI into your everyday practice. I mean, you don't have to put it in your core part of your business. For example, everybody has a chatbot. Almost every business has a chatbot today. So let's say if you're a bank, don't start AI in your credit processing system. Start it with your a bot facing, where it can
Sure.
answer L1 queries, and more serious queries are redirected to your engineers. I mean, self-service is everything, right? And service delivery. When was the last time you called somebody to ask for support? We try and see if there is a self-help document. We try and see if there is a chatbot.
Mhm.
Uh, Calling and listening to that funny music, all of it has become past. So apply AI in areas surrounding your core business, understand how the technology works, and then apply AI into your core functionality. So that would be my recommendation right now.
I love that advice. And just as a quick story, I had kind of left the security field in about 2006, 2007, went over to IT. And in 2010, I had the opportunity to kind of return into security again. And I had a lot of reluctance to get back into security and cybersecurity in particular, because I felt like I had sort of missed the boat. Like I was behind the curve. And so I was intimidated by getting into the field of cybersecurity, because a couple of years had passed, and I was kind of a little reluctant to jump back in. And it's kind of funny to think back in 2010 that would have been too late. As if cybersecurity had passed me by and I was a dinosaur. Because when I think about AI, I sort of think about it similar to cybersecurity, in that it's a core competency, and it's going to be a core competency as long as any of us are working professionals. And so, whether it's tomorrow or 6 months from now or 6 years from now, it will still be worth starting the journey to learn, because it's not going anywhere. It's going to be there for us to learn and to capitalize on, no matter where you are today.
Absolutely.
So we are getting close to the end of our time. Maybe the last thing, can you share, how to contact you and ManageEngine? What should any listeners who want to now engage with you in the company, how do they reach you?
Sure, Carl. So you can visit our website, manageengine.com,
Mhm.
and you can email us at us-events at manageengine.com, us-events at manageengine.com. And in case you want to reach me out personally, you can reach me out at ramp at manageengine.com, ramp at manageengine.com. So I hope that helps.
That is RAMP.
Yeah.
Perfect. Um, Thank you so much for your time. This has been a wide-ranging conversation. The depth of your expertise and the number of years you've spent thinking about these subjects really comes through. It's a pleasure to have you, Ram. Thank you for joining today.
Absolutely, Carl. Really appreciate the opportunity. It was fun. I didn't know how the last hour flew by. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. All right. Have a great day. Thank you.